Welcome to Albuquerque Housing Authority Update. I'm Brian Eagan, your host. Today we have special guests Daniel Foster.
Hey, Brian.
And Matthew Archuleta.
Hi, how you doing, Brian?
Good. Now, Dan, there's some good news about serving people with special needs, right, in public housing? The Housing Authority's working to do more?
Yeah, we're in the process right now of converting 5% of our total units to meet the accessibility standards that are outlined in the Uniform Federal Accessibility Standards, and then also the Americans with Disabilities Act.
What type of remodeling work does that entail?
That usually entails having accessible showers or roll-in showers, turning radiuses in the kitchen, workspaces where a wheelchair can fit underneath with clear space. Those are the big items.
Then outside the units, are we working to improve the development overall?
Yeah, part of meeting the requirements of the Uniform Federal Accessibility Standards and Americans with Disabilities Act requires that there's access from the parking areas to units to all common facilities. So if there's a playground, there's going to be an accessible route over to the playground. Trash containers,
the mailboxes?
Mailboxes, yep.
Parking spaces?
Parking spaces, and access to, if there is a sidewalk that comes up to the site, that there is access to that sidewalk for anybody with mobility impairments.
And will these be at just one of our locations, or will they be in many locations?
It's many locations. It's not at every location. So, a lot of our units were built in the early 70s before this requirement was in place, and the sites just are not in a condition that would lend themselves to the renovations. They're too steep, and it's just not practicable. So.
And does Albuquerque Housing Authority have a variety of building types as well?
We do. We have, now, in order for us to convert a unit to meet the Uniform Federal Accessibility Standards, it needs to be one story. That is either that or it's served by an elevator. So the units that we're converting out on our projects that aren't served by an elevator are all the single-story units, or not all of them, but they are the ones that are being targeted are single stories. And then we have our two tower properties, which is Embudo Towers and Wainwright Manor. Both of those have elevator service, and so there'll be accessible units on multiple floors on those units.
And we say tower, it only has 4 floors, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's a tower for Albuquerque. And Brian, we're real excited about this in public housing because it gives us an ability to serve an additional population that may not be served. There is, when you look around Albuquerque, there is a lot of older product and older housing that may not meet the standards. And the fact that, Dan mentioned our housing was built in the 70s. The few that were built in the early 80s are close to meeting that standard. But the ones that were built in the 70s, they didn't meet that standard. So we're excited about it because we feel like we can meet more of the population needs. And there is a need out there that, for these accessible units because there is a population that's just not, I don't know that the city is really not doing enough to meet the needs of this population. So we'll have that ability.
Is there a large demand for our public housing units?
There's a large demand for the public housing units. We don't see as much of the demand for the handicap accessible units, and that's because of the fact that I think we haven't had them in the past. Now that we have them, we're looking in-house first, and we've already sent a letter to all our residents to let them know that, hey, these are going to be coming online by the end of the year. And we've actually transferred some residents from other of our properties to the ones that we've already done the accessibility in. And they've been happy. They've really enjoyed it, and they've really appreciated having that accessibility in their apartment. So we're excited because we can serve additional members of the community through public housing. So.
And what is the mission of Albuquerque Housing Authority?
It's to serve the public and to house the people that may not be able to be housed in other places.
We're trying to provide affordable housing and
affordable housing, self-sufficiency, affordable, safe, decent, clean housing, and through a lot of the work that Dan has done in the Capital Funds Management Program, we're doing a lot of things to our properties right now.
And Dan, tell us, what is some of the good news about what's happening at Albuquerque Housing Authority in terms of the capital fund?
Well, we've got a couple different major projects going on. Now, the biggest one is the stuff we were just talking about, the making units accessible and the actual property sites themselves accessible.
The Uniform Federal Accessibility Standards Project.
Correct. And then we also have an energy performance contract going, and we are anticipating starting construction next month on this, and that's all energy efficiency upgrades. It's high efficiency hot water heaters, high efficiency furnaces, low flow fixtures, aerators, shower heads, things that are going to have tremendous savings for both the housing authority and the tenants.
So it's helping to lower the tenants' utility bills for tenants that pay gas and electric, so they can have money left over to pay their rent. And it's also helping to lower the housing authority's operating costs, because we pay all the water bills, water, sewer, trash, for all the public housing units.
Correct. And it's also addressing some just capital needs. For example, at our bigger properties, we have central boiler systems. This energy performance contract is allowing us to upgrade those systems. So they were aging. They were going to be out of date anyways, and so this allows us to upgrade and replace. So,
is Albuquerque Housing Authority going green?
We are going green.
We're trying.
Yeah,
You know,
in small steps.
Small steps.
One of the exciting things that we are getting to do is we are planning on doing photovoltaics at one of our properties now too. So
we're going to put some solar panels on one of our roofs to help generate electricity?
That's right, in Budo Towers, and I think we are going to be the first housing authority that implements photovoltaics as part of an energy performance contract. So
Yeah, first housing authority here in New Mexico?
First housing authority in the country.
Wow.
So it's a new, typically the economics don't work as well on photovoltaics. For us, for this project, we had the way the site is laid out, the opportunity is there. So for us, it's going to work.
And in Budo Towers is our largest public housing development?
Yeah, 101 senior housing
Senior
units.
disabled. And the thing that's exciting about this, Brian, is the Housing Authority had the opportunity about 7 or 8 years ago to do this, and they only did it on 2 properties. We're doing it every single property.
Citywide.
Citywide at every single one of our apartments and houses. And the nice thing is, because as we mentioned, they were built in the 70s, the standards were different back then. Now it gives the ability for us, number one, to save taxpayer dollars, and number two, for the resident to save on their utility bills. Because utility bills, when you're on a fixed income or your income is a little bit lower than average, utility bills really eat into your income. So this gives us the opportunity, number one, to lower our utility bills, which is good for the public, but also assist the residents, and it helps lower their bills. So we're excited about this project too, and we're excited that we're doing all the way around at all our properties.
And so Albuquerque Housing Authority is investing for the long term. We're working to extend the life of the units, preserve them for the next generation of residents that need assistance.
Yes, absolutely.
Wonderful. And now, you mentioned Albuquerque Housing Authority has 2 big programs. Public housing, which is the units that we own and operate and rent directly to tenants. And there's also our second program, Section 8, Housing Choice Vouchers.
Correct.
For Housing Choice Vouchers. And how are the housing vouchers different from public housing?
Well, with the housing voucher, basically, when you qualify, you get a piece of paper, and then that enables you to rent in any landlord or any management company that'll take that voucher. And some of the rules are the same. It's still 30% of your adjusted income. The one difference between the housing voucher is you have to be at 50% or below of the median income to qualify.
For area median income, AMI.
For the area median income, whereas at the public housing side, you have to be at 80%. So you can make more money and still qualify on the public housing side, whereas once you hit a certain threshold on the voucher side, you no longer qualify for the program.
So it's actually harder to qualify for a Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher by income at the admissions process
Correct.
than it is for public housing.
Correct.
So an applicant might not qualify for Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher. They're a few dollars over the income limit, but they might still qualify for public housing.
Correct.
So I encourage everyone to apply for any program you're interested in, because you might qualify for one but not the other.
And when that waiting list is open. Right now, there's no, the waiting list is closed on the Housing Choice Vouchers. Andrew was here a couple months ago talking about the new lottery system that we're going to be going to. And that I'm sure he'll be here again within the next couple months to explain that system. But the housing voucher wait list is down to about 200 or so right now.
And that
So-
waiting list formed back in 2014, so we haven't accepted any new applications for housing choice voucher from the general public since 2014.
Right.
And in 2017, we're converting now to a different admissions process for that one program, Section 8 housing choice vouchers for rental assistance for privately owned houses and apartments. It's going to be an admissions lottery now, so there'll be a drawing instead of a waiting list based on the day you applied.
And that's absolutely correct. And it'll renew annually. So if you didn't get, if you put your name in the bucket and it didn't get pulled in 2017, then you have an opportunity again in 2018. The waiting list worked for the voucher program, but not as well as a lottery system, I think, will work. The lottery kind of levels the playing field for everybody. And so we've written it into our occupancy standards and our admin plan this year that just the housing choice voucher will go to the lottery system. The public housing will still operate off a waiting list because that's the easiest way for us to go because we have the existing units.
And that's because public housing is a different type of program. There's
That's
one
right.
bedroom, two bedroom, three bedroom, four bedroom, and five bedroom houses in the public housing system. And so you have different lists for each size unit depending on the size of the household.
Correct.
Whereas with housing choice vouchers, it's just we pull up a household and we can award them a voucher depending on the size of the household. So if it's one person, one bedroom. If it's a parent and a child, a two bedroom. You know, and the larger the household, the larger the voucher size.
And the difference is that there used to be, well, there is now, is a pot of money. And so when you spend that pot of money, you determine how you want to spend it.
We have a budget.
So that's right. And so that pot of money is if you spend it all on one bedrooms, you can get more one bedrooms. But if you spend it on 3s, 4s, and 5s, you're going to get less. So that's what we're doing is we're just, it's a better way to distribute that pot of money. It makes it equitable for everybody. So, so yeah, those are the two sides of the Albuquerque Housing Authority.
Now Dan, Albuquerque Housing Authority Public Housing Program receives capital funding, correct?
That's correct.
And where does that money come from?
That comes from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD. Yep. And our annual allocation typically is right around $1 million. Sounds like a lot, but with 953 units of housing that's all aging, that money doesn't go far, and it's not even a fifth of what's needed to actually address the capital needs. So.
And so is that why Albuquerque Housing Authority is doing the energy performance contract? Is that an additional source of money to make capital improvements?
That's correct. That's why we're pursuing the energy performance contract, and we're looking at a number of other funding sources that are sort of outside through the traditional capital fund program funding stream.
And with energy performance contract, it's kind of like a home equity loan. Since the units are all debt-free right now, we can take out an equity loan to make long-term improvements that'll lower our operating costs so we can afford to pay back the loan?
That's correct. With public housing, HUD actually owns the homes and the apartments. They're operated by the Housing Authority on behalf of HUD. HUD doesn't typically allow any debt to be placed on a property or any liens. With the energy performance contract, that's one mechanism, one of the only mechanisms where you can put debt on public housing. And HUD reviews the scope of work, the projected savings, and says, good, it's going to work. And then they allow us to borrow money from entities. In this case, we're working with Bank of America. And Bank of America, we have a lease agreement. And so we're actually leasing the low-flow toilets, the aerators, the light bulbs, the shower heads. So it's an interesting way to do it, but it is one way that we can put debt onto public housing. And we've got HUD looking at it, we look at it, we've got outside engineers looking at it. So we're all watching where the savings is going to happen.
And this is a common practice at other housing authorities as well, right?
It is. This tool has been around for decades, so it's a tested and proven tool.
And speaking of tested and proven programs, the Albuquerque Housing Authority is also part of another project, Rio Vista Apartments. Can you tell us, how do we get the money for that? What's that about?
That's a different form of affordable housing. So, as we've been talking about, there's public housing, which it's properties that are owned by HUD. All the capital funding comes from HUD, maintenance funding comes from HUD, other than what's returned to the Housing Authority in rent that goes back into the properties. The Rio Vista apartments, the main funding mechanism is a program called the Low Income Housing Tax Credit Program. And basically what that does is it allows private entities, in this case it's the Housing Authority along with our for-profit development partners, Wishrock Investment Group. We form a partnership and we bring in what's called a limited partner. And that partner in this case is Boston Financial, and they are providing equity for us to actually do about a $12 million project. That includes the acquisition of the 75-unit senior housing properties from the former owners, and we're doing about $6 million in actual hard cost improvements. And that's a lot of green building and complete renovations of units. And in that property we have 8 of the 75 units are going to be meet the requirements of Uniform Federal Accessibility Standards and the Americans with Disabilities Act.
And all 75 units, though, the entire the building has 3 levels. All 75 units are being renovated for energy efficiency, right? So
That's correct.
And there'll be water conservation efforts with the landscaping, with the plumbing, and
it's getting xeriscaped, a nice little gazebo, some little walkways around the property.
It's an elderly disabled building, right?
That's correct.
It's 100% occupied.
It is 100% occupied, and it has a rental assistance contract attached to it. So, sort of like the public housing, tenants pay no more than 30% of their income in rent.
And that's the nice thing, is we're preserving that, because the owners, when they actually purchased that property, could have opted out. They could have said, we no longer need the subsidy. They would have been given vouchers. They would have been gone. And we've seen some of that around Albuquerque, the loss of subsidized properties. Because you can put it into the voucher, but then when that person loses the voucher, it's gone.
Right, so we're preserving it for another generation.
That's right. We're preserving the affordability, which it's a project-based Section 8 property. And the important thing, as Dan was mentioning, is we're renewing it, but we're also preserving the subsidy, which is real important to keep in the community. Because when you're looking at the senior disabled population, most of them are on, if not all of them are on Social Security. And so when you look at how little that fixed income is, it's hard to live off of that. So preserving that subsidy is really important to the community. And
yeah, there are a tremendous amount across the entire state of New Mexico. There's a lot of our affordable housing stock was built back in the 70s. That's when a lot of the federal government was spending a lot of money on developing affordable housing. A lot of that housing stock is aging, deteriorating, and their use restrictions are expiring. I think it's estimated that over 4,000 units right now potentially could move out of the affordable housing stock across the state. They're at that time period where their use restrictions are expiring, and if they can't bring in, owners can't bring in new money to renovate those properties and address their physical needs, then they convert it to market and sell it.
And so Rio Vista Apartments has a happy ending. This unit is being upgraded and updated now for 21st century standards, energy efficiency. It'll have lower operating costs. And then they signed a new extended land use restriction agreement, right?
Correct. Yeah, for another 45 years. We're locked in.
So this unit will be available for the next generation of retirees that need it.
Right. And this project also has a social service contract. We have a coordinator, social service coordinator.
So there's staff on site.
That's granted by HUD, and so yeah, there is a person that's on site full time that serves as a coordinator that works with residents full time. There's an on-site maintenance man, and there's an on-site property manager.
Wonderful, and that leads us back to public housing, Matthew. Is Albuquerque Housing Authority seeking to have more on-site services?
yes, we are. Currently we have 6 offices, but we're going to more of a regional office, and we'll have 5 regional offices and 3 satellite offices out there. We're hoping, we're staffing those now on almost an appointment type basis, or we'll go out there and half a day we'll do all our recertifications. But it's an opportunity for the residents, for us to provide the services directly to the residents, as opposed to them coming to our main office. So
and our main office is at 1840 University Boulevard Southeast, and
Correct.
and you're talking about moving out to the public housing development sites, which are in all 4 quadrants of the city, and going to where the residents are.
That's absolutely correct. And when we looked at one of our properties and discovered that it took 81 minutes for bus just to get one way, we thought we need to do something about that. And we've gotten HUD approval on that one property to establish an office. We're working on that as we speak, but 6 of those offices are established. One of them will be a satellite, but the other ones will be regional. And we're working toward that, so we're hoping in the near future that you'll be able to do things like pay your rent. Right now you can go recertify there, and do most of the business of the property there.
Put in maintenance requests online already.
Yes.
And you can call it in now, but wouldn't it be nice to go talk to someone and say,
That's
I
exactly
need to point
right.
out this problem?
And it's better for us to be on site. It's better for the taxpayer, and it's better for the residents that live there, because they know if they have an issue, they can come downstairs or come to the office and get it taken care of. So we've broken it out into regions, and we're working that way. So.
And we also are having some food banks at various sites. At least once a month, we have some mobile food pantries coming to the residents.
Absolutely, and pretty much the same thing. It's kind of regionalized on how that's going out there. But this gives us an opportunity to take more services to the residents. One thing I'd like to mention too is HUD passed a mandate about 3 months ago that we're going to be working within the next year or so to go smoke-free at all our public housing. I wanted to kind of get that in there because all public housing will be smoke-free, and that's a HUD mandate. We don't have any choice on that, so we're going to start working on. We'll start ramping that up now in July and August to start putting some different programs in place at the properties. So if someone wants to quit smoking and things like that, they'll have the ability to do that.
Yes, we're going smoke-free on June 1st, 2018, inside
Correct.
our units and outside the units on all public housing property sites. People can still smoke, but just not on our land. They have to go someplace else.
Correct. Now, one of the HUD mandates also is you can smoke 25 feet from the building, but we're still working on that because some of our properties don't have 25 feet for you to go from the building to smoke. So, yeah.
And then also, the mission of Albuquerque Housing Authority is to provide affordable housing as well as self-sufficiency opportunities. Would you like to say a word about how we help provide self-sufficiency?
Well, right now we do have a person in our office that works on family self-sufficiency. There's several programs that some of our residents can apply to and get into. They have, I want to say, meetings on Wednesday evenings where they're taught different things. Nutrition, how to save money, financial assistance, and things like that.
Working towards home ownership, saving money.
Towards home ownership, or towards the money they save can either go toward home ownership or it could go toward education. So it's really, we really want to work within our purview to bring people up. And to help them succeed and move forward in life.
And speaking of work, if people wanted to work at Albuquerque Housing Authority, they could check to see if we have job openings listed on our website, abqha.org. And we do have a Section 3 hiring preference. Section 3 of the Housing Urban Development Act says we have to give preference in hiring to qualified applicants who are low income. So we'd love to have a qualified public housing resident or a qualified Section 8 tenant that applies for work come work for us. We've had success with that in the past and presently, and we want 3 out of 10 of our new hires each year to be Section 3 residents.
Yeah, and HUD does require that, so it's another one of the ongoing things. We provide housing. Our primary function is housing, and we'd like to get to the point to where we can offer more services and more assistance to the residents.
And Dan, your capital funding also helps create jobs in the local area when we do these projects, right?
That's correct. We're hiring local general contractors. It's not a requirement, but just because of the scale of the projects we're doing, we typically don't get out-of-state contractors coming in and competing on these, but local contractors, certainly a lot of local subcontractors.
And we recruit locally with our vendor procurement process to try and get local people to bid on our work.
We do. We do direct outreach, and then we do outreach through the various networks that we work in. For example, our architects will reach out to contractors that they know they work with and request that they submit proposals for any projects that we have open.
And to learn more about our opportunities for becoming a tenant or becoming a vendor or becoming an employee, visit our website, abqha.org. Thank you.
Thanks.
Brian.